Well, a major storm is on the way, and this is going to create massive snows. And let me tell you something. This storm is going to be pretty serious for areas from Boston to Springfield, through Hartford, through Greenfield. Some folks are just going way too low with this storm. Actually, everyone is. At this point, I can confidently say this is going to give a foot plus for Worcester. This is going to give at least 10 inches to the Greenfield, Springfield, Hartford area. Once you work your way west of the Connecticut River, things drop significantly. We are going to go in depth with this storm on why that's going to happen the way it is. So you got winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings. It doesn't really matter. No matter where you're going to be, it's going to be a blizzard. I don't care if you're under a blizzard warning or not. This is going to be a blizzard. Okay. So we have, this is our current satellite imagery. There is already some pretty interesting stuff going on down here in Virginia. Look at those cloud tops. They're fairly high. The upper level low is located over northern Michigan. Your actual surface low is located somewhere over Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania. As this storm continues to move across, this is going to continue to interact with Atlantic moisture. Heavy clouds across all of southern New England. Here is your radar imagery at this point. Okay, this is as of 9:20. Look at this radar. This storm has not even interacted with your Atlantic moisture yet, and you've got all of this snow. Look at all this snow coming in here through northeastern Ohio. You're talking portions of Pennsylvania. This is really some hefty snows in here. And this is well before the storm has even gotten its act together. Got some minute light snows falling into these regions, very light flurries. This will continue to work in its way north and east as the afternoon and evening, or as the late morning and early afternoon progresses. I want you to see something here. Okay, so this is tomorrow. This is early in the morning. I'm just gonna go right to what I want to focus in on. There are two things. There are a couple differences between this model and the other model, or the other models. That difference is this model is having the upper level low deepening over Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, while most of your other models are having this low deepening to your north or to your south and east. So somewhere in this region. The reason why that's important is for two reasons. One, the earlier it starts deepening, the more west this precipitation is going to get. Not only that, what's happening is you have this cold air draining into the storm. You've got moist Atlantic air flowing right into the storm as well. What's happening here is at this hour, this evening, in less than 12 hours, what's happening is you have your upper level low right here, and you've got your surface low somewhere in here. Both are deepening. Therefore, in between both of the lows, so in between your surface low and your upper level low, you've got a dry slot, and that's right in here. If the storm is further to the south and east, that also means this flows more southeast, this dry slot. The further north and west this storm is, the further north and west the dry slot is. Right now, I am very confident to say that your dry slot is going to end up right in here. This is where your dry slot is. Particularly over central New York, Hudson River Valley. Right in here is where you're getting your major dry slotting. Major. You're probably not even going to be seeing flurries at times. Some light dry slotting in here. When I say light, you may go to a period of where it's snowing only light to moderately, but it's not going to be too bad. This is west of the Connecticut River. All of this is happening west of the Connecticut River. From the Connecticut River, okay, so this, from here to here is where you're getting your dry slotting. From the Connecticut River, which is right here, east, that is where things are going to be the worst. So you're basically talking about these regions. Okay. These circled regions are going to be experiencing a full force blizzard. Full force. That includes Springfield. That includes Greenfield. That includes Hartford. That includes Worcester. And that includes Fitchburg. Obviously includes Boston. That obviously includes Portsmouth and down East Maine. Okay. It includes Providence. It includes fringes of Long Island. You are going to be experiencing in these regions pretty darn close to blizzard conditions. We're talking Western Connecticut. You're talking the Berkshires. You're talking most of southern Vermont, central New Hampshire, on up into central Maine, and most of central Long Island. Pretty close to a blizzard, if not a blizzard. Now, here is where I need to start explaining why. Because right now, I am just showing you one model, and this model is showing the dry slotting back in here. Why do I think that this model is right and all of the other ones are wrong? Well, for many reasons, and I am going to explain that right now. First of all, you need to think about topography for a minute. So you've got in here, you've got mountains, okay, in here, all up and through Vermont. So these are all mountains. Then you've got the valley. Now some people think, oh, you got more hills here, which is higher. Well, yes, into these regions right in here, but to your south, it's not as significant as one would think. Okay, so it's much easier to go over 500-foot elevations to maybe at most 1,000, to where up in here you're talking 1,000 to 1,500 feet. So you're not having as much of a problem down into these regions. Okay, so looking at the topography once again, I'm going to actually, so you have your Hudson River Valley right in here. This is your Hudson River Valley. You've got mountains in here. I'm trying to make it look like it's like a mountainous range. It's hard. And then you got the Connecticut River Valley in here. And you've got hills. Hills, not high elevations, hills. Okay. And then you've got, of course, the coastal plain, which is back in here. So there's your topography. Very important. So you got to think of what's going on here. You've got the cold air streaming down. So you've got this cold air streaming in from Canada. Okay. You've got the moist air coming in like this. Okay. Now, here is where you kind of need to think a little bit more scientifically. You also need to think a little bit more, you need to think, okay? This is where your thinking cap comes into play. Okay, no doubt your moisture is definitely sinking all the way down to the surface in the coastal plain. Hills, yes. Now, the question becomes, does the moisture sink in to the Connecticut River Valley? Yes. Why? Because you need to think for a minute. Right now, there's a battle. You have your cold air and your warmer, moisture air. Cold, dry air is light. Okay, very, very light. So what this is going to tend to do is it does sink into the Hudson River Valley. It goes up and over the Berkshires. Therefore, on the western side of the Berkshires, we're watching out for the potential of a little bit more snow. Okay? Now, again, why doesn't this dry air win out? I got allergies, so I'm sorry. Why doesn't the dry air win out in the Connecticut River Valley? You've got this massive Atlantic moisture pouring in right from the Atlantic, and all of this is pushing right into the Connecticut River Valley. Okay? And remember, the cold, dry air is very light. Water and moisture is wet. Wet. Therefore, it's heavier. So, what that's going to do is that's going to, again, sink into the valley. This moisture is going to go ahead and sink into the valley. Connecticut River Valley. It's not going to make it to the Hudson River Valley. This is the reason why the Connecticut River is going to, or I-91 is going to be the cutoff. Okay? I-91, I swear, my nose is really itchy. And not only that, I've been having allergies. It's bloody and everything. I'm just having a really tough time. In any case, this moisture from the Atlantic is streaming right into the Connecticut River Valley. Okay? It's going to sink because you've got this moisture and it sinks. Okay? So, and it's not going to be, like I said, it's not going to be able to go over the Berkshires. The only reason why the western slopes of the Berkshires are going to get a little bit more is because this cold, dry air is going to go up over the surface, and because of the way how the mountains are tilted, it's going to allow the air to kind of come up like this and allow it to go further up into the atmosphere. Okay, so that's going to allow the western parts of the Berkshires to get a little bit more, a little bit, not significantly a lot. Okay, so this is important. This is where knowledge and common sense and knowing your meteorology is important, because we know massively cold coming in from behind the storm. We know major moisture coming in. Okay. Now, this again, because you got your upper level low right in here, you got your surface low right in here. That means these areas right in here, you're getting dry slotted. Okay. Now, so how does this affect accumulations? Well, it affects it a lot. It affects it significantly. And if this storm starts deepening down in here, down in here, it gets a little more tricky. If it starts deepening down up in here, you're also talking about a problem. Or up in here. The further east this storm deepens, like I said, the more east that dry slot is going to be. This dry slot is what's going to be key to figuring out accumulations. At this point, I think it is safe to say, we're going to clear all this now. At this point, I think it's safe to say these regions right in here. And I know I'm tending to really be I may be over emphasizing things here, but I want you to understand where I am coming from here, and that I am not just pulling this out of my you-know-what. Okay? It takes a lot of knowledge. It is very complex. Okay, this is why this video is so long, is because it is so complex, and there is a lot to this storm, and because it's dynamic, that means it's more complex. Okay, now, as this storm moves east, this is early tomorrow. Notice we now have these winds over Vermont and the Berkshires. That is, of course, not the most optimal place for the convective banding. Convective banding is basically the heavy snows. Your convective banding is setting up somewhere in here. Okay? Because again, you have your low in here, you have your surface low somewhere in here. In between there, which is basically right in here, is where you're going to be talking about that back edge. That's your back edge, or your dry slot, where you're going to be drying out. Right in here is where you're talking the major snows. I'm telling you, major. And then notice how this storm starts deepening. Look at this. It goes from here to here. We're now talking to here. And it's really deep here. It is really deep here. You look right in here, more heavy banding. More heavy banding. This is just, and the reason why I am so confident about this is because, first of all, looking back on the blizzard, this model, plus the other model I'm going to show you in a second, was the most consistent. It was the only model to show that this storm was going to be 50 miles south and east of where it was originally, projected. And folks, we're talking yet again 50 miles. 50 miles is what it's going to be here. 50 is the magic number here. 50 miles to the north. We are talking the difference from the storm being basically right in here, 50 miles to the north or 50 miles to the south. That's all it's going to take. Is the upper level low right in here, or is the upper level low right in here? And obviously this model is agreeing that it's right in here. If it's in here, well, then that means your dry slotting is going to be further to the north and further to the west, or further to the east. Okay? But right now, this seems to be in check with current observations, with everything up to this particular point. Okay? I am very, 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 very confident to say this is going to be a major snowstorm along and east of I-91. You are going to hear me say that probably several more times throughout this video. Along and east of I-91. Once you go west of I-91, amounts significantly drop. Remember, it is not right under this upper level low that you're getting the heavy precip. It is to the north. Because remember, your actual surface low is somewhere in here. That means you look on the northwest side of the surface low, that's somewhere in here. Okay? So your major snows are not in here. No. They're in here. Okay? And the storm continues to exit out. Okay? Lift. The lift is going to be major. This is why thunder snow is possible tonight. Notice this deep, cold air just draining right into the system with this warm, moist air coming up and around the storm. This creates lift. This creates lift. This creates clouds building. The more interaction you get between this cold air and moist air, the more convection you create. Okay? Normally you don't get too much convection with these types of systems. This storm is going to have a lot of convection. It's been a very long time since we've seen a storm of this caliber. Okay? I cannot emphasize this enough. I can't stress it enough. This is crippling. This is a crippling blizzard. Boston, Worcester, Springfield, Hartford, Providence. Up to Greenfield, up to Fitchburg, up to Nashua and Manchester. Crippling. This is going to close cities. Drifts could be over 3 feet. Parts of down east Maine will see drifts potentially as high as 10 to 15 feet. This is going to be a historic storm, people. I do not know how to say it any more clearly. This is going to be major. I want to show you something on the surface map. This is tomorrow early morning. Notice this area of light green right in here, and it's nice, and it's like right in a nice circle. That is an eye. You know how in a hurricane you have an eye? This is an eye. This is basically a hurricane. Basically, the hurricane is a little different. Okay, I'm not going to get into that meteorological lesson because we're not dealing with a hurricane here. We're dealing with a blizzard. So but basically in all probability, this is pretty much a hurricane, a low-end hurricane that we're dealing with. These are snows falling at 1 to 2, as much as 3 inches an hour with thunder and lightning. This is snow within a 6-hour period, about 6 to 12 inches, maybe more. 6 hours. Okay? 6 hours. It is very possible that within a 6-hour period, we see more than, in some areas, 6 to 15 inches. It is possible some areas see as much as 18 to 20 inches in a 6-hour period, particularly in these regions, where it's possible as much as 20 inches could fall in a 6-hour period. Oh yeah, 20 inches in a 6-hour period. That is really possible. I am very, very, very concerned for down east Maine, where this is just going to be historic. Historic. I am telling you, just historic. This is going to be pretty historic. One of the biggest snowstorms we've seen in history in these regions right in here. We're talking northeastern Mass, southern New Hampshire, southern Maine. This is going to be one of the most major blizzards we've ever seen into those areas that I've just hatched. In these regions, the most significant snowstorm we've seen in... See, amounts will not be what is going to create the havoc here. It is the blowing and drifting that is going to create a lot of the havoc in this circled area. This storm is probably going to match most of what we've seen thus far, which is about 12 to 18 inches plus. The problem here is you're going to have major drifting. Okay? And it's just going to be piling up. Not only that, the storm, because it's so cold, it is going to allow the storm or allow the snow to accumulate even faster. Even faster. Not only do we have that, we have also an Arctic boundary that we're dealing with. So to complicate things even more, we have an Arctic boundary. This is going to be moving through later on tonight. So sometime around this time period right in here. You're getting that Arctic boundary moving through. Oh yeah. This is, within a very short period of time, you are going to get major snows. With this storm deepening, so this is going to be, you know, we're talking this evening, okay? Major snows already. With this storm deepening, with this Arctic boundary moving in, you can see pretty clearly where this Arctic boundary is. You can see the cold air really enforcing right in here. So this is going to create some major snows moving along, okay? But like I said, this is just going to be insane. This is going to be an insane storm. Hope you're ready. Okay, I just want to show you, okay, another model. It is the Short Range Ensemble Forecast Model. Now, before I get into what you're seeing here, you probably already know, but we'll get into that in just a sec. But this model, combined with the model I just showed you, slammed the last several storms, and including the blizzard. I am consistently mentioning that because these are the same two models that are showing this solution. It is very significant. The reason why it's very significant is because this storm is major. Okay, this storm is major, and obviously our other models are not necessarily handling the storm all too well. Obviously they're having problems because they had a problem with the blizzard. They were calling for 2 to 4 feet. We ended up only getting one foot, one to 1.5 feet, while Boston ended up picking up about 2 feet. So about 1 to 2 feet instead of 2 to 4 feet. Which, when you're starting to talk about in feet, if that was in inches, that wouldn't be too bad. But once you start talking in feet, well, you're talking 12 inches off, which is pretty significant. Okay? This is a similar situation. You have 4 models showing practically maybe as much as a foot, while you have your other 2 practically showing over a foot. While the 2 models have been showing this for almost a week, 5 days, while the other models before were showing this same solution, but then for some odd reason, as we got closer, they just fizzled out. So what do we buy? The models that were originally showing this solution that the 2 models are showing right now, that now they are showing something not as significant, not taking topography into account, not taking cold air into account, not taking dynamics into account. Not only that, not taking into account that it has not been sampling particularly Clipper systems very well. No, horribly. And you have these 2 models that were very correct for the blizzard back a few weeks ago. What should I go with? Well, right now, this is my motto: consistency over consistency over consensus. Consensus is normally okay, but in a situation like this, it is not okay. It is not okay. Because you have a model that was horrible with another blizzard. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, that's a different storm entirely. That's true, yes. But the problem here is that where it sets up the low, where it brings in the drier air, is just completely out of line with what physics has to tell us. It is simple physics. Simple physics. So this is the short-range ensemble forecast for New York City. The mean is somewhere around, it looks like this is showing about 5 inches. Going a little lower than that, it is very possible you only end up picking up about, it is possible you only end up picking about, an inch or 4 to 6 inches. But I think a safe bet right now is 2 to 4. Okay, 2 to 4 inches is a good safe bet, with 4 to 6 being a possibility in the New York City metro area. I'm going to bring us on up into the Hatfield area. I just want you to notice, here's your max, 23 inches. Here is your mean, a foot. Here is about the littlest that you can expect, which is about 6. I want to bring you up here to where we are in Chicopee, Massachusetts. 2 feet. 2 feet the max. The mean about 13 inches, and the minimum somewhere around 6 to 8 inches. I would probably say it's around 8. Worcester. Notice you have about 22, 23, 24 inches. You have your mean around 15 inches, and you have your min around 9. Going up into the Gardner area, Fitchburg area. Again, look at, you've got close to 30 inches at your max. Your mean is about 16 inches, and your minimum is about a foot. A foot. Let's bring us on over into the Orange area. Look at this. I mean, you have another area showing a good 2 feet at max. Your min is about 14 inches. Your minimum is 8. So at this point, according to the short range ensemble forecasts, you're talking at least 8 to 14 inches, with 14 inches plus being a very good probability. Let's move on over into the Boston area. Pretty much the same scenario. I mean, you have about 28 inches at the max. You have the mean somewhere around 14 inches. You have the min somewhere around 11 inches. I mean, it's the writing is on the wall, folks. And what folks are not realizing for these areas in here is that snow ratios, as I mentioned, are going to be 20 to 30 to 1 at least. Possibly up to 35 or maybe even 40 to 1. Snow ratios back in here, where there's going to be another area of another bullseye area on the western slopes of the Berkshires, they're going to be talking about 40 to 50 to 1 snow ratios. So once you get into the 495 corridor, you're starting to talk about, you know, right in here, you're probably talking about snow ratios. Oh, I would say about at least 20 or at least 20 to 1, 15 to 1, somewhere in that range, with up to 25 to maybe even 30 to 1. In these regions, you're talking you're going to be talking 15. You're going to be talking at least 10 to 1, but probably 15 to 20 to 1. So you got 15 to 20 in here. You got 20 to 25 in here. You got 25 to 35 in here, and you got 40 to 50. Got 35 to 40 back out in here. But remember, less QPF from here back into the Albany area. I want to show you what the model is showing for the Albany area. Look at this. At most, 14 inches. You see that? The mean is somewhere around 6 or 7, with lots of the ensembles showing about 2, 5, maybe up to 6 inches. Obviously, this model likes that the dry slot is going to be over the Albany area. We're going to move north. I want to show you Portland points north. 40 inches. Look at that. Max. You got your mean somewhere around 2 feet. You got your min somewhere around 16 inches. That's in the Portland area. You're going to go ahead north. We're going to go to the Bar Harbor area. Notice this. Look at max. Almost 60 inches. Almost 60 inches. Your mean is 32 inches about, with your min somewhere around 25 to 30 inches. Going to drag ourselves a little bit more to the north into the Bangor area. Look at this. Your max is somewhere around 55 to 60. Your mean is about 40. Your mins are anywhere between, we'll say, 28 to 30. Oh yeah, major. This is why in Down East Maine, this is going to be historic. Look at this. This is in, I believe this is in Holton, Maine. Look at this. 56 to 60 inches max. You got your 40. You got about 40 to 42 inches, 40 to 44, 48, somewhere in there, and you got your mins all the way down to 32 inches, or only down to 32 inches. Oh yeah, Down East Maine. This is going to be historic. And like I said, even for these parts of Maine down in here, this is going to be pretty intense. This is going to be one of the most intense storms that you've seen in a while. Max about 40 to 48. You've got your means around 2 to 3 feet, and you've got your mins somewhere about 14 to, you got your mins somewhere 18 to 24. Oh yeah, this is just an all-out blizzard for coastal Maine. This is going to be major there. This is even, but like I said, this is even going to be major in Massachusetts, in Connecticut, and Rhode Island. I hope I made myself clear on what I am thinking here, okay, and why I'm thinking what I am thinking. I am not liking the Albany area getting over 3 to 5 inches. I'm just not. I'm not liking the Berkshires. I mean, parts of the Berkshires could get locally 8 to 12 inches, but I'm not liking most of the Berkshires getting up over 4 to 8. I'm not liking areas west of Albany picking up over 2 to 4 inches. That's just how it's going. Once you get along in east of I-91, that is where your major snows are going to be. that's where they're going to be. There's no doubt about it. The writing is on the wall. Whoever is forecasting 4 to 8, 6 to 10, I mean, you can go ahead and just chalk that up. You can chalk that up as that being a definite. I have those as my lowest end snowfall totals. Because what happens, just in case, I forgot to mention I am making four snowfall maps for each storm now. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to account for all the potentials. Okay, what happens if the storm moves like this? What happens if dry sluts are this far east or this far west? So I have one minimum, bare minimum. I have one potential maximum, and I have two what I think is going to happen. Okay? But I just want you to know this isentropic lift is going to be very major from coastal Maine all the way from down east Maine on down like this. Okay, you're going to be talking about major lift in here, coming down through here, and it just right on up like this. This is where your major lift is, where you're going to be talking about convective banding, major convective banding, right in here. Okay, this is where over an inch to 2 inches an hour, maybe even as much as 3 inches an hour can fall. Okay, this is where it's going to happen. This is your winds combined with the blowing and drifting, combined with all of the snow falling, combined with the snow falling, zero visibility. And the blizzard conditions could last for quite a while, because even when the snow is over, because this snow is so powdery, it's just going to continue blowing all over the place, because behind the storm, there's heavy winds. There's heavy winds. That's why we're also under a wind chill warning right now here in portions of New England. So that's what it's looking like. Okay. We explained about the upper level low deepening in here. We talked about how this is going to basically show where the steering of the storm is going to go. We basically talked about how you've got the cold air draining into the system on the backside. You've got the warm, moist Atlantic moisture streaming in into the storm from the east. We talked about how you're going to be talking about dry slotting over central and upstate New York, across the Berkshires potentially. We talked about how topography is going to influence where the moisture is going to, where most of the saturation in the atmosphere is going to set up. We talked about how ratios are going to be very important. We talked about how this is not going to be a 10-to-1 snow ratio. By the way, normally when you have a normal snowstorm, because during a normal snowstorm, the mid-levels of the atmosphere are about 14 to 23 degrees, with your surface temperatures about 20 to 25, to as high as about 30. So we're talking 25, 30, maybe as low as 22. What ends up happening is, as this precipitation falls, it basically stays not necessarily too watery, but not too fluffy. So you're basically talking a normal consistency snow. And a normal consistency snow is basically, you take the QPF value. QPF value is the amount of water falling in a specific time frame. Okay? I'm going to use an example here. This is QPF amounts. All this green is QPF. The light green is 0.01 inches of QPF to 0.1 inches of QPF. The green, the lighter green, that is 0.1 to 0.3 inches of QPF. So basically, in a normal storm, you'd be talking about a trace to as much as an inch in this light green area, to where in the more brighter shade, or in your extreme light shade of green, you would be talking about a trace to an inch. In the light green area, areas I should say, you would be talking about, normally in a normal snowstorm situation, you'd be talking about 1 to 3 inches in this specific time frame. But not in this storm, because 10 to 1 is basically moving the decimal place over one place. In this storm, what that's going to mean is you are going to go ahead and multiply that by at least, in coastal areas, you're going to go ahead and multiply that by at least 15. Areas along and inside 495, you're going to multiply that by at least 20. And areas outside of 495, you're going to go ahead and multiply that by at least 25. Areas a little bit northwest in that, we're talking areas west of I-91, you're going to go ahead and multiply that by 35. East of the Berkshires, but west of I-91, or west of I-91. East of the Berkshires, west of I-91. You're going to multiply that. Go ahead and multiply your QPF values by 35. In the Berkshires, you're going to go ahead and just multiply that by at least 40. Your QPF values. Oh yeah. It's major. Okay. So we are talking huge snows, especially along and east of I-91. High ratio snow because of how much cold we're dealing with here. We've already got a lot of, we're already dealing with a lot of cold air in place before the storm comes in. And we're going to get some fresh cold later on this evening. Fresher cold. And that's what's going to help this storm to be so significant. Okay? So we talked about the ratios. We talked about the isentropic lift and how that's going to affect convective banding. We talked about how there's going to be some thunder snow. We talked about the winds blowing and the winds and the blowing and the drifting of the snow. We talked about how this could be potentially historic. Down East Maine, we talked about how the two models are basically the two models that are showing the heavier solution are the same two models that nailed the blizzard back a few weeks ago. We talked about how all of the other models are not necessarily handling the dynamics of the storm very well. Basically, we've talked about everything, okay? I at this point I can't really think of anything I missed. But at this point you can go ahead and expect at least this much, and we're going to go to my maps now. So you can go ahead and expect at least 4 to 6 inches in through these regions. So you're talking the Berkshires, Vermont. Okay. Hudson River Valley, you're probably going to be talking about 2 to 4, 4 to 6, probably closer to 2 to 4 at least. Got your 1 to 2 back up in here. You're just too close to Canada. This is just too close. I mean, this is just going to be a problem into these regions. Now, notice you have this little area right in here. This is from basically, I believe that's Batavia, New York, over to Rochester, over to Syracuse. These areas are going to pick up a little special blizzard for themselves, where I expect at least 6 inches of snow to fall here. The reason being is you're going to have snow coming right out of the north. This is going to set up snow bands right in here. And this is going to create some pretty major snows into those areas. I probably need to have the snows setting up more like so. Like this. Up and down rather than east to west, but it really doesn't matter either way. But from Batavia, New York, you're talking also the Hamburg, New York area, over to Rochester, over to Syracuse. You're talking major amounts of snow as well. This is a little special for you. You're getting a little taste of what us here in southern New England are going to be picking up. And these are the areas that picked up 60 inches of snow back in November. Remember that? Well, guess what? Some areas are going to do that with this storm potentially. So that's what I'm expecting at least. Notice I have New York City 1 to 2 at least. Okay, but as far east as Queens, I could see them getting 2 to 4 at least. Once you get in, my good friend Wayne out of Long Island, I think you're going to be talking about at least 2 to 4 inches. My good friend Braden, you're probably going to be talking about 2 to 4 inches at least. My good friend Radek, he lives in Fairfield, Connecticut, or Bridgeport, somewhere in that area. You're going to probably pick up about 2 to 4 inches at minimum. My good friend Matt, he lives right in here. You're probably going to be picking up a good 14 to 18 at minimum. You're right on that line. I wouldn't be surprised if you pick up at minimum 18 to 24. Oh yeah, Matt, pretty intense stuff here. My good friend Rudy, here in Boston. Oh yeah, 14 to 18 at minimum is what I'm looking at. Got some friends in Connecticut. Easton, Connecticut, we're basically talking east of I-91, 4 to 6. So we're talking Litchfield Hills, we're talking the Danbury area, we're talking the Waterbury area. All these areas about 4 to 6 inches at minimum. Once you get into the Hartford area, that's when things get interesting. I believe my good friend Rock and Ron Sedaley is in the Hartford area. Yeah, you're in an area, Ron, where things are just going to blow up. You're in where, again, right from the Connecticut River Valley east, you're going to be talking about some serious snows. At least it's looking like 6 to 8 inches. But you just jump over. You have like Springfield right in here. Let me actually decrease the point value on my marker here. You got Springfield right in here, where I got my little yellow point. You've got Hartford right in here. Okay. Yeah. You go practically maybe 2 miles north and west of Springfield, and you're in 8 to 12 at minimum. You go about, I would say maybe a good 5 to 10 miles north and west of Hartford. So you're talking the Manchester area, 8 to 12 inches at minimum. You go even further to the north and west, so now you're talking the Stafford Springs area, Summers, Connecticut, at minimum 12 to 14. This extends up into the Palmer, Wilbraham. I would go as far west as Ludlow. You're talking Belchertown is in there. You're talking Palmer here. This is going to be basically city by city forecast. Oh yeah, this is city by city. towns could maybe, your city or town could maybe even be cut into half or threes or fours at times. That's how close these snow accumulations are going to be to each other. Okay? So this is what I'm expecting at minimum. Okay? Alright. Oh, I also have my good friend Dan. I believe he lives down here in New Jersey, where I got my tiny yellow point. Let's do that. That's a little better. My good friend Dan, who lives, I believe, right in here. He may live up in here somewhere. He lives somewhere in that area. 1 to 2, I'm thinking at minimum. Do I know anybody else from anywhere else? Oh, my good friend Cam. He lives right on Cape Cod. You're talking at minimum 12 to 14. Okay? Minimum 12 to 14. I do not know anyone in... I do have an aunt who lives in Portsmouth, or in Exeter, New Hampshire. She's going to be seeing an aunt and great uncle. They're both going to be talking about hefty snow accumulations of at least 18 to 24 inches. Let's see. Do I know anybody else from anywhere else? Oh, my good friend Jeff from out in Cleveland, Ohio. How you doing, Jeff? I know we haven't really talked in a little while. I'm expecting 2 to 4 inches at minimum. You're already snowing as I'm doing this video, so you're gonna get 6 to 8 inches, is what it's looking like, Jeff. So expect that. Enjoy your good snows, because you live in a good area. Let's see. Do I know anybody else from anywhere else? Oh, I have a good friend. His name is, I am drawing a blank at this moment on his name. Samir. Samir, you live in the Philly area, right on the edge of 1 to 2 and 2 to 4. Do I know anybody else from anywhere else? Oh, my good friend Bob. I believe he lives around the Norwich area, Norwich parts of Connecticut. 12 to 14 at minimum for you, Bob. Okay. Let's see here. This time I don't know anyone in Rhode Island. I don't know anyone in Maine. But if you know anybody in Down East Maine here, tell them to batten down the hatches. This is historic. Do I know anybody in Vermont? No. New York State? No. No. So yeah, that's what I'm expecting at minimum for you guys. Alright, here is the low ends. That's the bare minimum. Here's the low ends of what I'm expecting. Low ends. Okay, so let's get into this. If you know anybody who lives in the good lake effect snow belts here back out into the Syracuse, from the Hamburg, Batavia, New York area, all the way out to the Syracuse area, at minimum 6 to 12. It's looking like a good 12 to 14 is possible. So get ready for that if you know anybody in that area. Again, I already told you, Jeff, what you're going to be getting with this storm. Samir, you're on for my low ends of what I'm expecting. 1 to 2, with 2 to 4 just to your north. Okay. My good friend Dan, I have you in the 2 to 4. On the low ends. Lenny, how you doing? 2 to 4. 2 to 4 is where I have you in on the low ends of what I'm expecting. 4 to 6, Braden. 4 to 6 ray deck is what I'm expecting in your area for the low ends of what I'm expecting. Matt, you're gonna get about 18 to 24. 18 to 24 inches of snow in 18 to 24 inches, and that's on the low ends. Rudy, you're on the low end of what I'm expecting here, 18 to 24. My good friend Bob in the Norwich area, you're right on the line of 14 to 18 and 18 to 24 for on the low end. Remember, this is the low ends of what I'm expecting. Ron, Rock and Ron, it looks like you're in you're either right on the border or just inside the low ends for what I'm expecting, the 12 to 14. My good friend Morgan, you're in the 14 to 18. Myself, I am right on the line of 12 to 14 and 14 to 18. I feel like I'm missing someone. Oh, Wayne. Friend on Long Island. I know I know there's another I have another good friend on Long Island. I don't know exactly where he lives, but Wayne, you're in the 6 to 8 at bare minimum, or on the low ends of what I'm expecting. Okay. Cam, low ends of what I'm expecting, 14 to 18 for you, but you're right on that line. Because what's going to happen here is as the storm is intensifying and moving up like this, you're going to get a little bit of dry slotting in here on this part of the Cape, because the eye of the storm is going to be fairly close. It may even be going right over, or the fringes of the eye could be going just to your east, Cam. So I'm expecting at minimum for what I'm expecting on the low end of what I'm expecting, 14 to 18 is a good bet. Okay. My great aunt and uncle, 24 to 36. Matt, you are somewhat close to the 24 to 36 inches. Do I know anybody else from anywhere else? No, I don't. But if you know anybody who lives in Portland area or in Down East Maine, they are going to be talking about at the low end of what I'm expecting, 36 to 48. Yeah, pretty intense stuff. Okay, finally, no, never mind. This is the high end of what I'm expecting. Okay, so we've got the, whoops, sorry about that. You've got the 12 to 14 back out in here. I think it's possible that you may see a 14 to 18 in here somewhere, but I'm not too confident about that. If you know anybody who lives in the Hudson River Valley, they are not going to do well with this storm. Probably only 2 to 4 inches. You got the Berkshires and Litchfield Hills getting about 4 to 6 inches. All right, now we get into, we're just going to start south again. Semir, about 2 to 4 inches is what I'm thinking on the high ends of what I'm expecting for you. Lenny, I could see you in that 4 to 6. I think you're in that 4 to 6. Dan, you're in the 2 to 4. On the high ends of what I'm expecting, so basically 2 to 4 inches is what I'm expecting in your area. Lenny, just to your east is where 2 to 4 inches is going to be happening. So you're right on that line of 4 to 6 to 2 to 4. Braden, you're talking about the potentials on the high ends here of 6 to 8. Ray Deck, you're talking 6 to 8 on the high ends of what I'm expecting. Wayne, you're about 8 to 12 on the high ends of what I'm expecting. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. You've got Bob. You are in on the high ends of what I'm expecting, 18 to 24. Rudy, you're in the 18 to 24. So basically in your area, I'm expecting 18 to 24 inches, Rudy. Matt, you're right on that line. You're right on that line of 18 to 24 and 24 to 36. So I'm thinking about 18 to 24 in your area, with the potential. You have a fairly good potential of possibly picking up a little over 2 feet. This goes as far west as just outside my area. I'm right on that line, as well as my good friend Morgan. He is right on the line of 14 to 18 and 18 to 24. Ron, how you doing? You are in the 14 to 18. You may even be on that line right in here where you're talking the 12 to 14 or 14 to 18, somewhere in there. Okay, so the high ends are 12 to 18. Let's see here. Am I missing anyone? Oh, Cam. 14 to 18 is what it's looking like on the high end. So I'm basically thinking about 12 to 18 inches in your area still. My great aunt and uncle, 24 to 36. So I'm basically expecting 24 to 36 inches in their area. Portland. So if you know anybody in the Portland area, they're getting about 2 to 3 feet. 2 to 3 feet. In these parts of Maine, they're going to be picking up 3 to 4 feet is what I'm expecting. Here is what we have the potential to get. All right, so Samir, you know, you're still on that line, 1 to 2, 2 to 4. I think you're pretty much talking 1 to 2 inches. Dan, you're pretty much in that 2 to 4, so I think you're talking a good solid 2 to 4 inches. Lenny, you're in the 4 to 6 at the maximum. You're actually on the line of 4 to 6 and 6 to 8. New York City is in the 4 to 6. You've got Wayne in the absolute maximum on the edge of 6 to 8 and 8 to 12. So basically, Wayne, I'm thinking about 6 to 12 inches in your area. Ron, the absolute max, I again have you on the line of 12 to 18, or 12 to 14 and 14 to 18, while here we have 18 to 24 at the max. Morgan, 18 to 24 at the max, as well as Bob. But Bob, you're on the line there of 18 to 24 and 24 to 36. Matt, you're in for at the max 24 to 36, with that line of 36 to 48 being fairly close. Fairly close. Rudy, you are in the 24 to 36 and the max. Cam, you're in the 18 to 24 in the max. Okay. My great aunt and uncle, they're in 36 to 48 for the max. If you know anybody in the Portland area, they're talking about for the max 4 feet plus, 4 to 5 feet. And as well as in Down East Maine, 4 to 5 feet is the potentials. Am I missing anyone? Oh, Braden, 6 to 8 for the absolute max, and Radek, 6 to 8 for the absolute max. So I'm thinking a good 4 to 8 inches in your area, Radek and Braden. Lenny, I'm thinking about 3 to 6. with areas just to your west picking up a little bit more, and areas just to your east. Actually, to your east you have a little bit less. But with areas about 30 to 40 miles, 30 to 40 miles west of you are about 4 to 6. Berkshires, notice I have them pretty much in 4 to 6 for everything, so this is pretty much a 4 to 6 snowstorm for the Berkshires, with some localized areas picking up maybe 6 to 8, maybe a localized 8 to 12 in some of the highest elevations of the Berkshires. But this is a mainly east of I-91 event. At this point, I don't think I'm missing anyone. If I missed you, just let me know your location and I will tell you how much you will be getting. Okay. This is major. Also, notice I have 14 to 18 back out in here. That's where they're going to get their own little special blizzard due to lake enhancement snows. Okay. So that is the storm here in a nutshell. I have wasted over an hour, but I think it's important, and I think ultimately, I think you're going to hopefully be surprised. I don't know, because again, weather is very, very tricky, so we'll see what ends up happening. I will be back Monday night. I probably won't be updating this. I am pretty much going to keep this the same through the whole storm. We'll see what happens. Remember, actually, I didn't mention this. If anything, if along and east, not including these parts of New Hampshire. So this is Cheshire County. So along and east of I-91, except for Cheshire County and southwest New Hampshire, if any area picks up less than 6 inches, I will not forecast the weather ever again, and I will make it official here on YouTube. Okay, so if anywhere along or west or east of I-91 picks up, along is a little different, is a little tricky, but west of I-91, if any area picks up less than 6 inches, actually no, we'll even go along, because I don't think we're gonna get less than 6 inches along I-91. So along and east of I-91, if any area gets less than 6 inches, I am going to quit forecasting the weather publicly. Okay, so that's how that's gonna go. I am very confident about this storm, and I am very confident in what I'm predicting. Could I be wrong? Yes, I could be, but chances of me being wrong are fairly low. But again, we'll see what happens. Mother Nature sometimes does what she wants to do, so we'll see. That is the storm. I hope you enjoyed this little presentation here for you. Stay tuned to future updates, as it's possible that we could even get a little bit more than this, but I will not be doing any more videos for this storm. My next video will probably be posted sometime Monday or Tuesday. Okay, take care everyone, have a great Valentine's Day.